Hello, Jamie here, DevRel at All Hands. Happy to see everyone and kick off our community meeting for September 5th. Just a little housekeeping. We have a new time and a new day for our next community meeting based on the Slack poll that we did. We got a lot of reactions for Thursdays from 11 to 12 for Eastern people, and that would translate to 15 to 16 UTC 0. And we're going to keep the every other week cadence. And this is going to start, obviously not today, but for our September 18th call, because that is Thursday. So just wanted to announce that, and the calendar will adjust accordingly. And then let's go ahead and welcome our new contributors. So for our 0.550 release, these are our new contributors. So just want to give a shout out to Zacharias 030, Joe OC 2001, Here Isaac, Daniel J. Bruntz, Underth Moon 99, and myself. I also made a contribution for this past time. So just want to give a shout out. Thank you so much for these contributors. Excited to announce you in other ways besides this. So that's coming soon, but definitely want to give some recognition to not only new contributors, but our faithful perpetual contributors / maintainers as well. So doing some thinking around that. And let's go ahead and go to our next slide. So we have some project updates. And we have the LLM risk analyzer. So added comprehensive risk analysis capabilities to help identify and mitigate potential security issues in AI-generated code. I believe we might have talked about this earlier, either that or I've just been reading about it a lot. So basically, when you're running OpenHands locally, something might pop up saying, do you want to proceed with this code? This is deemed as high risk. And then you can proceed or cancel. So that is in the CLI. That is also in the GUI as well when you are running locally. Eventually, we will have that for our cloud-based as well. And then also we have configurable condenser history size. So we added settings to control the maximum history size for context condensers. This allows for better memory management for long conversations. And finally, also multi-branch repository performance. Basically, what that boils down to is people working on repositories with a ton of branches. It wasn't working as intended, and so we've made some performance optimizations so that it will work smoothly. And those are some of the major features that came out on this project, on this recent release. And then we also had some key bug fixes, as you can see here. So fixing usage of reasoning models, resolving visual formatting issues, improve the GitHub and GitLab cloud resolver context handling, fix token expiration issues during OpenHands cloud conversations, and then also better error handling for malformed API requests. Before I move on to the next slide, I just want to see anyone from the All Hands team want to add something, or do we have any attendees have any questions about our 0.550 release? Feel free to drop it in the chat, unmute, or if you want to add anything, feel free to unmute. Okay, we're going to move on. And the next thing is another project update. Congratulations to Juan, who got us on this leaderboard. And we are now #1 for the SWT-Bench Leaderboard. You can check it out in the link. I will also drop it in the chat here for those who do not have this pulled up. But yeah, some of the commentary around there is that this is what Robert tweeted. A lot of agents out there are over-optimizing for SWT-Bench, and we've been very careful to ensure OpenHands generalizes to a wide variety of engineering-related tasks. So, you know, only can go up from here. Very exciting. And then also we can talk about, before I move to the next slide, is there any other things that we wanted to mention for project updates that's not related to OpenHands V1, which we will go more in depth later? All right, moving on. So just want to give some updates for DevRel. I have been marking good first issues about every 5 days or so, but because of OpenHands V1, we want to pump the brakes on this a little bit, just to give engineering time to focus specifically on V1. Otherwise, contributors might be putting a lot of work in these PRs and then not getting them reviewed in a timely manner. And we just want to make sure that you're making meaningful contributions and using your time wisely. So I will be pumping the brake on most good first issues. If they're very topical, then that's fine to continue on. But if they get a little bit deeper, then probably not going to recommend for people to contribute. And then also coming soon, I will pull contributor docs and then make sure that they're in our published documentation, as well as pulling all features. I know we have a lot of features that are in the OpenHands repo, but they're not documented in our published documentation. And so that is something else that is on my plate and top of mind. And then finally, our OpenHands Community dashboard. I'm really excited about this. This is one of the ways that I want to highlight our new contributors, our maintainers, our constant contributors. And so be on the lookout for the OpenHands Community dashboard, doing some tweaking and making sure that the stats are accurate before we really blast it out there. All right, and with that said, let's go ahead and talk about OpenHands V1. I believe, Robert, you're gonna start us off, and then Xingyao, you're gonna follow up. So I'll go ahead and let you to it.
Awesome. Let me bring up the GitHub issue. So this is probably the cornerstone of our V1, is this minimal Python SDK. So today, we basically got one repository in OpenHands, and it has all the things. It has all the logic for driving our agent forward. It has a whole web server for working with the agent, a whole React front end for working with the agent, a CLI for working with the agent, all of our runtime logic, etc. And so it's a very large repo. Our Docker image is like 8.5 gigabytes, something like that. If you try to pip install our CLI, it's like several gigabytes of data and takes like 5 minutes to install. It's all just too much. And this code base is like just grown organically over the last 18 months with 400 different people contributing. Like there's a lot of cruft here. And so we really want to rebuild a good foundation that will set us up for the future, right? And so we've spec'd out what we're calling our agent SDK. And the idea is something super lightweight with very few dependencies that can allow you to drive an agent forward with all of our best-in-class logic for running software development agents. And so you can see like some very basic hello world example code here. You create an LLM, you define a tool call, it's just a Python function. And then you can start an agent, give it a quick prompt, and it'll use the tools at its disposal to do this thing. We are going to include, separate from the main package, but in the same SDK repository, a bunch of default tools. It's not a bunch of default tools, really like some default tools for like browsing, sorry, I think we're going to use browser use MCP for browsing, but at least for executing bash scripts and file editing, so that you can have like a MVP agent. We'll have first-class support for MCP in here as well. I think I have an example, maybe not.
Yeah, I can demo a real example later.
Yeah, cool. Meeting here is just like a super simple way to drive agents forward. We'll factor this out into its own repo, and then we'll become clients of this with our CLI and our server. We'll use this under the hood to actually manage agents. Any questions there? Well, I think the big thing to keep an eye out for is that there are going to be some breaking changes in the way that like we serialize agent sessions. So you won't be able to like use old conversations with new OpenHands. There are going to be some changes in probably the CLI and web APIs will stay the same. Config changes are probably going to take place. So any of your like TOML configurations, et cetera, might get harder to manage, or you might need some breaking changes there. I think we still haven't figured out exactly what the migration path looks like from V0 to V1, but stay tuned for that. Xingyao, do you want to give a tour of the SDK as it lives today?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. So can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. So basically, I can quickly go through like the proposed folder structure for the CLI. So basically, now everything is like we are using UV for package management this time, so no more poetry. And then in the CLI, you basically see like there is a bunch of like simple examples like the screenshot Robert just shared. And then for SDK, we actually have like two packages. One be like the SDK and the other one to be tools. So we decided to put like tools like execute batch and stream replace editor into its own package, so that if your changes doesn't really touch like these tools, like we don't really need to run tests for that, because that's the main bottleneck for our V1 like CI is the tool test. And then within SDK, we basically have like agents config. We have the concept of like context, conversation, events. I'll talk more about this in like a follow-up examples. And then basically to set up this CLI is like really easy. If you want to develop it, just git clone and then do a make build. And then the Hello World example, this is something that Robert has shown. And then this is the actual version we are using in development. For core concept, we have like the agent concept is like the central orchestrator that coordinate between like the language models and tools, probably not conversations. So you just need to pass in like a language model as well as the tools. For LM integration, it's similar. We also have an LM registry, although I imagine most of the people who are using SDK directly won't really need it. It's basically for you to manage like different LM instances and aggregate cost among all of them. And then for tools, we have like a simple patterns. For example, we have some predefined tools like Robert mentioned, which is like the essentials like bash execution and file editor. And by the way, right now the bash support both tmux and machines without tmux. For example, if you have like a through sub process, and then both of those implementation have like the advanced support for interactive bash command. So basically the agent can just go into the interactive Python and interact with the shell, instead of like getting timeout and stuck there. And then for a more advanced pattern, you can actually explicitly define a batch executor and then pass the batch executor to the execute batch tool. And then we can later reuse this role like executor to define your own custom, for example, custom tool. For example, here I'm defining a custom tool called like grab. And then what I do is like, I just need to define the action, like the action, the observation, as well as how I want to execute it. And when I execute it, I simply reuse the bash executor here to pass a bash command into this executor and then get back my result and parse it into my own type of like grab observation. And then for conversation, we basically have like two main APIs, like send messages and run. Basically, when you send a message, and then the agent is not going to do anything. And then when you do like conversation.run, the conversation will start running until the agent enters a await user input state. And finally, for context management, as a lot of people are aware, we have the concept of micro agents in V1, in V0. And then V1, we sort of like aggregate all these type of things that are going to be put into the context of the agent under this agent context. So it supports basically 3 arguments. The first one is like micro agent. You can pass in a bunch of like repo micro agent, not the micro agent. And you can also specifically define like system message suffix and user message suffix. And to get started, I guess I can do a quick demo of the micro agent. Yeah, basically you can see like the system message suffix is injected after the system message, and here is the content of like the repo.md, which is like the repo micro agent we just defined. And then yeah, are you a grumpy cat? And then the extended content here is the user message suffix we just defined. And then yeah, this is like how it works. And then in this PR branch, we also do support MCP. I can actually show the code for MCP. It's extremely simple. So we decided to go with like this very common like MCP JSON format config. And then what we really need to do is like just passing this MCP comment into this create MCP tools from the SDK. That will gives you a bunch of like MCP tools with the pre-configured like executor. And then you're simply extending the list of tools you're defining. For example, previously you have bash and file editor. Now you just extend these tools with MCP, with the tools you got from MCP, and then pass this to the agent, and that's it. So I can run that too. Do a demo of that. Oh no, that's not the right name. So as you can see here, we see like there is an additional fetch tool being added to the system message. And then the agent is able to use that fetch tool to call like to create like fetch actions and fetch content from like the OpenHands repo. And here are like basically the MCP tool results from that fetch observation. And then you can see it's like using this fetch tool in like an iteration, and then gather enough information, and then use the file editor tools, and then basically create this facts.txt. And yeah, that's basically everything I have to show today.
Cool. Thanks, Xingyao.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about this? Anything that Robert talked about or Xingyao talked about, feel free to drop in the chat or unmute. I'm gonna give a couple seconds for that. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, one of the things I'm most excited about for this is that it'll make it super easy to plug this into like other things that you want to do with OpenHands agents. So like up until now, it was just really hard to use OpenHands as a library, but like using OpenHands as a library will get a lot easier now. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Yes, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I have a question. So currently OpenHands is primarily used for coding purposes. So when it's available, like when it's possible to be retrieved from the SDK, is it possible that it can be extended to perform tasks other than coding?
Yeah, absolutely. The Agent SDK on its own doesn't really have any coding specific logic in it, right? It's really just an agent. You can throw any tools you want at it. We have seen people use OpenHands as it is today for non-coding tasks. I think it is really helpful, even if you got an agent doing like document extraction or something like that, to give it that batch runtime and like really give it all the things it might ever need to do. You know, giving it the ability to like write and run code can be really helpful for whatever task it wants to accomplish. So yeah, I would say there's definitely a lot of room to use this for generic tasks.
Okay, so basically this SDK can be treated as a generic boilerplate, as a framework for agentic application. Right. This is what it was originally. Okay, got it.
I think the best way to think about it is if you want to compare it with something like LangChain. LangChain, the idea is you string together a bunch of like weaker agents into like a larger agentic system. That's not really what we're aiming for here. We're aiming for this to be like one really good agent that can do lots of things depending on like the tools that you provide to it. And by default, it'll be good at editing files and running commands, which makes it a good coding agent. But you can also throw in a web browser if you wanted to read web content, or you can throw in an MCP that interacts with linear if you wanted to read through all your linear tickets and go in and resolve them or something like that. So like by default, good at coding. Additionally, possibly good at like lots of other things if you give it the tools it needs to do those other things.
Got it. Yeah.
Excellent question. Thank you guys for giving more context around that. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Okay, cool. I did not add this to the agenda, but I did want to bring awareness to this, and that is introducing the PR arena. So let me share my screen real quick. Entire screen. Yes. All right. So I do not know how to say your name, so I apologize. Introducing PR Arena. It's a free AI coding agent and fixing real GitHub issues. So you can kind of pit two different models against one another. It's powered by OpenHands, and you can read more about it in this Twitter thread that was also dropped in our Slack. Graham, did you want to add anything about this?
Yeah, this is a project done by like CMU master's student Ji-Sung, who has also contributed to some other things on like benchmarking different language models within OpenHands. But the basic idea is like we have SWT-Bench, which can be used to kind of check how well different agents do on like pull requests from like various already existing open source repositories, but it doesn't really tell how well they'll do like in the wild. And so what you can do with PR Arena is you can run two OpenHands agents, or run an OpenHands agent with one language model and another OpenHands agent with another language model, and then choose between the two PRs that are written by the two like agent runs, and then decide which one you like better. With the idea being that if we are able to collect lots of votes for this, we'll be able to say, oh, this language model is better than the other. So you just saw that was like pitting DeepSeek against Claude. Oh, great question, Ken. Can we choose which 2 to 3 models should fight it out? Currently, no. We have a set of 5 models, which is like Claude, DeepSeek, GPT-4o. We actually weren't able to include GPT-5. I wanted to include it, but the problem was, or I think we're using O4 Mini, but I wanted to include GPT-5, but it was too slow. And there's a limit in the number of minutes that you can spend on a GitHub action. It's like 60 minutes on a GitHub action, and it was timing out after 60 minutes. So on the OpenHands cloud, it works because we don't have that sort of limit, but within GitHub actions, it times out. So yeah, and then there's 2 other models. We can like actually maybe post which models we're comparing. I'll tell Ji-Sung to do that on Twitter next time. But yeah, at the moment you can't choose which ones you're using. But yeah, I'm excited about this. Please try it out. Please, please, vote. And if you vote, we'll be able to create a leaderboard.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is cool. Awesome. Well, that is it for today's community meeting. We will see all of you again, or through a recording later that will be published on YouTube, and not on Fridays, but on Thursdays. So we'll see you guys next time on September 18th. And otherwise, feel free to continue to chat to us on Slack, and we'll see you there.